I got involved in research at ASU because I always knew I kind of wanted to have that lab experience. So I basically just looked on the ASU directory and I typed in some keywords like animal research, biology, and I just emailed a bunch of professors and asked like, I'm really interested in research, please take me. And then those that responded, I set up interviews with them just to kind of see if it's a good match. And I eventually chose one.
So I'm actually involved in a program through my major called ARIES, and it's Advanced Research Experience Seminar. So I just found out about it through one of my general lecture classes, and I was able to apply as a sophomore because I'm a Barrett student.
I got involved in research at ASU when I became an art history student. For every single paper, for every exhibition I curate, I have to do tons and tons of research on the artists I want to associate in the essay or exhibition. And getting a job at the ASU Art Museum just made me have to research even more.
So one of the professors in the math department emailed everyone that had taken a specific statistics class, and they asked if we could help them over the summer, and that's how I got started.
I was interested in getting involved at research with the Biodesign Institute, so I emailed a lot of professors there that I was interested in their work, and one of the labs decided that they would give me the opportunity to work there, and so I started working at Biodesign Institute.
So I'm in a program called Grand Challenge Scholars Program at ASU, and it's for engineering students who want a more holistic experience during their undergraduate career at ASU. One of those components is research. And so I'm required to do 2 semesters of research within my theme, which is energy. And I met my research professor through an event from the ASU Math Club. During Passport, an email from the ASU Math Club that said, Dr. Holman is talking about solar energy. But what won me over was the free pizza event, got free food, networked with Dr. Holman, and I learned a little bit more about the solar energy research that he was involved in here at ASU, and I asked if there was an open position. He said yes, I tried it out, and that's how I became involved.
So I study the way animals interact with one another, and we look at their behavioral concepts and the differences between like individuals and groups. Usually we want to look at how they split up work to get tasks done. So like as humans, like if you go into work, one person doesn't do every job, you have a bunch of different people working on things. So we look at how animals do that, but the only difference is they have to split up things to survive, we split up things for like a paycheck.
So I've done a lot of different research. Research I'm working on right now is on a Latin American, Cuban American artist named Ana Mendieta.
My lab works at it's the Center of Innovations in Medicine, so we look at innovative ways to treat different things within medicine. So we're looking at breast cancer and seeing how we can develop peptides that can be used as antibodies that we can put within the body that can treat breast cancer and be a vaccine for it.
So the research project I'm currently involved in, you take rats and you get them addicted to cocaine, and then you kind of observe their behavioral patterns and see how they react differently to different drugs that we inject them with to see maybe it'll prevent them from going back into drug addiction. And currently we are getting rats addicted to cocaine, and then we're going to be dissecting them later to observe their microRNA in their brains to see if there are different like abnormalities.
I work with solar cells. Solar cells are made primarily of silicon, which is a chemical element, and I work on analyzing or characterizing how the solar cell structure is made.
I'm working in the Child Language and Literacy Lab up here, actually, and they had a grant and they did this study for about 5 years, and they tested second graders on working memory. So we have this computer game, and it's 6 hours long total, so they go every day for about a week, and they test second graders on this game. Well, since they finished that, I'm now going to be testing 6th graders, and we're going to try to see if there's any longitudinal like capacity, like improvements in working memory and what's going on and how that will affect in the future their language and their learning style. So it's really cool. The game's pretty fun. So.
Every day when I walk into the lab, I look at this machine. It's called an ellipsometer, and what it is, it's a machine. I put a sample on a platform, and then light shines onto the sample, and that sample either absorbs all the light or it gets reflected. And there's a sensor that tells me what gets absorbed and what gets reflected, and then it gives me some nasty graphs, and I do some math and magic, and that determines the thickness and the porosity of the silicon sample that I am testing.
The biologists analyze a bunch of like animal clips or like actually observe the animals, and then they rank the tasks that they're doing and look at how much time they are spending on those tasks. And then my job is to go in and look at the data and try and figure out a mathematical model that we can use to predict how they're going to spend their time.
Since the beginning of the semester, I've been training on how to administer the games, and then I actually learned how to administer a color blindness test, visual acuity test, some speech assessments that you usually don't learn until you're in grad school, so that's been really cool. And then a hearing test. So this week actually I'll be doing fidelity checks so that I can pass those, and then I'll be able to go out and test actual kids using the things that I've learned.
Go into lab. In order to get the rats addicted to cocaine, we have to implant these catheters into their skulls. So we usually schedule surgery days for those, and so I go in, I take the rats out of their cages, I weigh them, I do the pre-op stuff, which is I shave them, I mark their tails, and then I basically aid the surgeons in the surgery process. And then on a day-to-day basis, I do rat handling, so you have to get them kind of used to human contact, and so I'll just like hold them for a few minutes. And then when we're actually doing drug testing, I put them into these little enclosures where they go through like cocaine cycles.
Now I'm working with a senior who's doing her thesis, and so I'm testing the efficacy and the toxicity of the different syn bodies that are being developed. We do a lot of cell culture, and we see when we put the syn bodies into our cell culture, if the cells are living, if they're dying, and what proportions they're living or dying. And we can see the efficacy of that by seeing when we have infected cells that are infected with breast cancer, are they being cured? What's happening to the cells?
So my research takes over my life. I work here at the museum about 30 hours a week, and for my studies I research up to 30 hours a week additionally.
So right now I'm doing it for academic credit, so I have to spend at least 10 hours a week in the lab. I usually come in all of Mondays and about 2 hours twice a week.
Over the summer, I spent about 40 hours a week doing research, but during the school year, I only do about 5 to 10 hours a week.
I'm actually required to go in 10 hours a week for my lab, but usually depending on how much they need me, I'll go in more. And then we have a lab meeting every week that takes about 2 hours. So I'd say on average, it's maybe about 12 hours a week.
Average about 10 hours a week in the lab.
So it's 135 hours a semester, so you just try to get to as close as that as you can, and that's your credit for the semester. It's a 3-credit class per semester.
Is that a lot of people do different things when we work together. You can think of it as like a big jigsaw puzzle piece. Every one piece is unique. Every person or every researcher in the lab will have a certain job, but it's really important that we all come together and collaborate to make a big picture or to accomplish a common goal.
It's okay if you're new. Like, I'm a sophomore and I've only taken 2 classes in my major, so I was really afraid that I'd come in and I wouldn't know anything and I'd be super behind, but especially through my program, they really make sure that they walk you through it, and I'm sure it's like that in a lot of research programs. So no matter how much experience you have, or if you're good at math or not, like, I think research is really for everyone.
So I definitely thought that the classes I had taken would better prepare me for doing research, but it was all about learning a whole different skill. So it was just very different from what I expected.
Research is a process, and I think a lot of people just expect to be able to go in there and they're like, all right, I had this one day of training on the machine and I need to be like proficient in the software. And it's not always the case. I find myself often going back to the project manual or the instruction guide to read how the software works in order to do things. Sometimes I have to email the systems engineers, the people who design the machines that I'm working on, because sometimes I don't know how to use them, or I'm not getting the results that I need. And so research is definitely a learning process, and there's a big opportunity for personal growth, not only the academic or the hard skill sets that you're getting from learning and being trained on the materials, but you also learn persistence, and you learn what it means to stay steady and stay strong and continue to push for those results, to refine what your process is, your physical procedure, before actually accomplishing it. Because when you do achieve that goal, it makes it all the more special knowing that you spent a lot of time and like hard work and effort to get the result that you need. It's very satisfying.
It was at first really hard for me to see these rats kind of being hurt during surgeries or just getting them addicted to drugs. But I think in the end you have to keep an eye on the bigger picture, like why are you doing this research? And for us, it's because we want to help people who are addicted to cocaine become better and not be so dependent anymore. And I think it's always good just to remember that you're working towards a bigger purpose, and what the most you can do is just to be as compassionate as you can to the animals in your lab.
Interested in going into medicine, so being able to get involved in research showed me that it's very tedious to get involved in these things, and that the drugs or medications that I might prescribe in the future, it takes a long, long time to get them developed, and it's a process that I'm more appreciative now whenever I see a drug or a medication, because I know the process that goes into developing it. For students that are looking to get involved in research, I would recommend that they start as soon as they can so that they have a lot of time to commit to a project, because once you get started, you're going to be really excited about what you're doing and you want to have a lot of time to complete it, so that whether you get published or you get more involved in the future, it's really good to just be able to start early.
Advice to future researchers, I'd say don't limit yourself to strictly things that you're like really set on. Like if you're interested in biology, like don't just focus on one thing that you're like, yeah, I really want to learn about animals, but maybe just like send a lot of emails out, and because there are still so many topics that you probably don't know about yet and you'll really, really love. My current lab is neurobio, and I haven't really done much about that, but after being in my lab for a while, I totally enjoy what I do. And I'd say just keep your options open, and don't be afraid of rejection, because ultimately there will be some, but that's okay, because that's why you send out so many emails.
Just don't be afraid to reach out to people about it. Even if I know a freshman who's doing research right now and she loves it, and she's a freshman, so that's awesome. She just started school. So I think just network, and even if you can't get involved right now, just keep your options open and know that there's chances in the future to get involved.
Explore, whether it's exploring on the research website. So every department at ASU, whether you're in College of Arts and Sciences or engineering, has a research tab where you can look at the faculty profiles on ASU, and it has a little bio of all the different research projects that they're in, and then email that professor or find out when their office hours are. It's harder to say no to someone in person, so making sure that you're in their face and being super excited, saying, yes, I want to be involved in research. How do I get involved? Whether it's starting out as a volunteer, being paid hourly, $10 an hour, or whether it's through a research-funded program like Fulton Undergraduate Research Initiative or any one of the university grant programs that exist for students. Get involved and ask professors, and they'll more than likely say yes, because they want fresh perspectives from students like you.
If you want to get involved in research at ASU, it's out there. We're a Tier 1 research institute, which means we offer the most opportunities for undergraduates. So just talk to your professors of classes that you really like or that you really get along with, and they'll probably have something for you to work on.